Hello, my name is Leyla Angelidis. I'm a member of Open Hearts Big Dreams, which is focusing on literacy, art, and technology projects all throughout Ethiopia for K-12 kids to help create more opportunities for them.
Leyla Angelidis was 3 years old when she became concerned about the lack of children's books in her native home, Ethiopia. The little girl, who was adopted as an infant and taken to America, decided to make a difference after hearing about the problem. "That's not fair and we need to fix it," Layla told her mom, Eleanor, in Seattle.
I learned that kids in Ethiopia don't really get to learn to read with the same amount of joyfulness and colorfulness that are in the books that I got to learn to read with, so I thought that was very unfair.
Layla has been showing her maturity throughout her childhood. Now 12 years old, the young girl has grown into the beacon of the Angelidis household, lighting up the home with her humor, excelling in school, and always proving her thoughtfulness.
Good evening, dinner, a statue. I love to read, so when I heard that some kids in Ethiopia don't get to learn to read, my heart broke. Ethiopia is a beautiful country and home to 109 million people, half of whom cannot read. One of the reasons so many people can't read is the lack of early reader books. That to me is unimaginable because I cannot remember a time when I was not surrounded by more books than I could read.
By expressing her concerns about the lack of children's books in Ethiopia, Layla inspired her family's Open Hearts Big Dreams initiative, which strives to improve literacy in the country.
Hey, carrot, yum! Carrot, can make it in? But the carrot is too big. Grandma can't pull it out. It's a carrot can aziu gazifi. نحقوي كتنقلو أي كالتن. Help! حجزوني. God comes to help. حنت تقال كتحجز مزيا. Chicken comes to help. حنت دار هو كتحجز مزيا. Cat comes to help. حنت دمو كتحجز مزيا. Oh no, the big carrot stay stuck. أيتخالن. اتجازيف كاروت كنقال أيتخالن. حجزوني. The tiny mouse joins in. دقيق أنجوا تسمبرا. Top, top, top. Potato, sahabu. Out pops the carrot. Iti carrot tanaqilo.
We started doing literacy work in Ethiopia, building libraries, starting with her hometown of Bahadar, and really trying to build an authentic connection with the Ethiopian community, both here in the US and in Ethiopia, by contributing. My parents are both teachers. My husband's a teacher. We are, firmly on board with Mandela's quote that education is the most powerful weapon. And I really like the fact that he used the word weapon, because it is a weapon, a nonviolent weapon to change the world.
Open Hearts Big Dreams Ready Set Go Books program creates and distributes books specifically made for children in Ethiopia, featuring Ethiopian characters and written in several Ethiopian languages, as well as English. Collaborating with several other organizations, such as Ethiopia Reads, Open Hearts Big Dreams started to make an impact in the country.
Mama, አለው የማታ ማታ ሀገር በወገን እንዴት ይረታ ፍቅር በነገር እንዴት ይፈታ ዘር ሳይለያየን ወይ ሃይማኖት ከጥንት በፍቅር የኖርንባት እናት ኢትዮጵያ ውዴት ውዴቷ በጎጆ ያልቅም ሙሽርነቷ
I was born in the US, but my parents were not. So I feel like I have that child of immigrant stories. My dad is Dutch, but he grew up in Indonesia and the Netherlands and Australia. So he has a very interesting background. My mother is also Dutch and grew up in the Netherlands. So they immigrated as adults to get an education, kind of a familiar story if you're from an immigrant family. My husband is Greek, and we have two biological sons too, so I have 3 children total. And between my parents and my husband, we had always connected our family and our children to the various cultures that we share. We view ourselves as a multicultural family.
The family's experience with different cultures fueled their desire to bring even more diversity into their home. So they traveled to Ethiopia and adopted a 6-month-old baby named Layla.
At the base of it, we wanted to grow our family, and we wanted to give a child who needed a family. I have my own very personal feelings about some of the motivations that people put out there for why you bring a child into your family. But for us, it was truly, I had a sense in particular that there was another child that was supposed to join our family, and that she was somewhere out in the world. So then we looked at, there's just the mechanics of an adoption process, particularly international. Because we are multicultural, we are very interested in, other cultures and other countries.
Considering the similarities between the Greek and Ethiopian traditions, the Angelidis family naturally incorporated Layla's culture into their home.
The first time we went to Ethiopia, my husband and I both said, this feels comfortable. This feels like we've almost been here. It's almost like visiting a cousin, right? They aren't quite familiar to you, that you haven't met before, but you have that sense of that connection. And I think partly it's because they're 2 ancient cultures. Partly it's they have the roots in the Orthodox Christian. And the fact that if you look at on a map, they're not very far apart, like East Africa and, Eastern Europe, and in particularly the Mediterranean, right? I mean, there's a lot of connectivity there.
The Open Hearts Big Dreams project has played a key role in bringing the Angelidis family closer to the Ethiopian diaspora.
This is not something we're doing sort of in a vacuum. It very much is a connector on a personal level. And then we really have learned that connection between the diaspora and those who have stayed in country, again, having experienced that through our own cultures, I think that connector through language and culture and stories has been a really powerful motivator.
Despite their effort to fill some of the void that comes with adoption, the Angelidis family understands that Layla may still feel the effects of being separated from her native culture and language.
We can't replace those. You can't make up for them, but you can put other things to support so those losses aren't just a gaping hole. Can those losses contribute to something else? And I think that was our goal.
In Ethiopia, not all kids get the chance to learn to read. I view this gap as a big scary lion, or mbasa. An Ethiopian proverb says that when spiders unite, they can tie up a lion. So, if we unite, like the spiders, we can tie up this lion and make it so that all kids get the chance to learn to dream with their eyes open. So, like I said last year, give until it hurts, and then give a little more. Thank you. I definitely felt like I was able to become more connected and understand my connection to Ethiopia, whereas where I had gone before, I hadn't really understood the complexity of Ethiopia and how amazing it was that I got to go back 3 times.
Children around the world are also reading the Ready, Set, Go books and appreciating Ethiopian culture.
ነው በርበሬ ይሆናል። እዚህ ጋር ደግሞ ጣፋጭ ነው ማር። ለቀለምም በርበሬ እና ዘይት እናዘጋጃለን። ከበዝ በርበሬ ዘይት በርበሬውንና ዘይቱን እንደባልቃለን።
Open Art's Big Dreams has contributed nearly 100 unique titles to Ethiopian children's literature so far. The project is made possible with the leadership of author Jane Kurtz, who writes many of the easy-to-read books. Several other contributors also volunteered their writing abilities, artistic talents, and various skills to make the project a success.
We didn't have a big budget, so we needed volunteer writers, volunteer illustrators, volunteer translators, which is asking a lot, right? Like, Daniel Getahun, would you let us use all your art for free, right? Or will you create brand new art for us for free? But the amazing part is people did, right? People stepped up, and we find this project like a beautiful microcosm of what needs to happen in the world. This is one of our newest ones, and these beautiful watercolors, which you will see in a lot of our books, are created by senior citizens who are taking art classes as a last chapter in their lives, and they create this wonderful art. And what they do is they study photographs, because I think without exception no one has ever been to Ethiopia. But this is now giving their life purpose, and we've heard from a number of them how magical this project is for them, because they get to learn something brand new and contribute, and the thought that their art is now going to delight a child sitting in a school or a library halfway around the world is so fulfilling.
Although some of the authors are not Ethiopian, they still have to make sure they understand the culture and reflect the customs in the stories. The authors get feedback from Ethiopians around the world to make sure a realistic Ethiopian lifestyle is depicted in the books.
We work in the countryside. We work in the city. Some work can go with us wherever we go. Sometimes we work hard to get to school. We work hard in school too. Work never lasts forever. We work, but we also play. We stop our work and take time to pray. Work is wonderful, and rest from work is wonderful too.
I knew a little bit about self-publishing, I say enough to be dangerous. So I said, we can do this. We just need to bring it on the self-publishing platform. We'll make Kindle versions. I think what I learned over time is to be very intentional, right? There's more choices than are presented. You can create your own path. You can create your own choice. So I think when I started, I looked at the ways you could be successful and chose within what I knew. But as I moved through my career, I realized there's a whole set of choices that aren't presented and a whole nother set of choices that you can create. And if you put those two together, essentially you can build your own adventure and the life that you want, as opposed to following some formula that was created that doesn't seem to fit you.
Eleanor's open-minded approach sparked her desire to make a difference in the world, and her willingness to see life from different perspectives, which ultimately strengthened her bond with Layla as they contributed together.
And for me, going through the process together allows me to see what does it look like from different perspectives, because when I go to Ethiopia, I'm the person who gets the skin touched and the hair touched and the all the sort of not unwanted, but not sought out attention, which I know my daughter experiences when we go certain places in the US. We wanted her to have memories of Ethiopia woven in. So she went back at 3, she went back at 6, and then things got a little complicated in Ethiopia for a while. So we had meant to travel, but we needed things to settle down a bit. And so that was why there was a gap between, 6 and 11. And then our plan is to go back again, barring COVID or others, next year again, and try and go back every 2 to 3 years.
We went back this summer. We had lots of things like kids and teachers and lots of things. And I made a friend like the little girl you just saw in the video. We read books together and I got to go to her house. And I was going to ask you if you could help the kids that don't get to go to school. Thank you very much.
The family strives to make Layla feel at home when she is back in Ethiopia. But it's a tall task for any person, especially a child who doesn't speak the country's language or fully understands the culture.
And she's taking Amharic classes, but like I've taken Greek forever. It's really hard when it's another alphabet and completely different sounds. So there's no guarantee that she'll be able to like get language that way again because we don't speak it in the home. But if you can go into your hometown, like where she was born in Bahadar, there's a school called Yekatet 21 that it has a library that has a plaque that this is a gift to the kids of Bahadar from another kid who was born in Bahadar, that she can go and there's a place that has, you know, her contribution to her own community, which we all make if we stay. So our goal was really to help her feel at home and to feel like she didn't lose everything. Yeah, because there was an interesting example when she was around 6 and we were visiting one of our projects and they got out crayons, right? And like you can just, every kid in the classroom, because it was, you know, outside of Addis in a rural school, was given one crayon. And the kids, you could tell that was a privilege. They got one crayon, right? They gave the bowl to Layla, who was 6, and she just colored with it, like, because it was normal for her to get a bowl of crayons, right? And I think like what her brothers and I and her dad registered is like, wow, she doesn't even see that, because again, she was just playing and she created stuff, and then they collected all the crayons, right? Which you don't even do in the US, like just throw them back in the bucket because there's so many of them, and if they get broken, you'll get another one. But like, it occurred to me in that moment that she had not yet registered that her experience was very different, because for her, it's like, these were kids in a school and we got crayons and we're playing, which is a really beautiful, natural thing. It's painful. It's painful for me to watch the inequities in the world where, you know, a child growing up in the US has these opportunities and a child growing up in rural Ethiopia through no fault of their own or no fault has these opportunities. There's a lot of inequities in opportunities and a lot of kids don't get the same chances that we take for granted. And that was a big motivator for us, at least, that how do we equalize that opportunity? We may not be able to get the whole way, but we need to work on it, right? Because it shouldn't matter where in the world you're born. That shouldn't determine what opportunities you have. The literacy rate in Ethiopia remains stubbornly low, like in the 50s, and worst for women and girls. I think the good news is there's starting to be more of a publishing and a writing and a reading culture in Ethiopia. It's growing, but it's not at the rate like Layla talked about. Like, you're not going to go and find hundreds and hundreds of children's books, right? Especially early readers.
It's really hard to imagine never learning to read. I think it's even more hard to imagine learning to read without holding a book. But that's true for many kids in the world, and that's why we're here today. So, I want to take you back to last year. Last year, it was December 2017. We just lost my dad, and my mom got cancer. It was a really hard year for the family. But coming together and doing something for kids is very healing. And we have really good news. My mom's doing great. Thank you. And my dad, who was an avid, lifelong reader, including reading to his grandkids, I'm sure is really proud of her and of the efforts here today.
It's called the divine discontent. I'm never happy. because I want to know how could we go faster? How could we do more? We know there's 4 million first graders. So we're on track to publish another and distribute another 100,000, which we give to schools and libraries there. But that's not enough, right? And we've done 5 languages in country, including Timbarsa, Sidama, Ditsen, so some of the smaller languages, but we know there's many, many more. So how do we get mother tongue languages? We have all the books now, but how do we hit the 4 million number, and how do we keep going deeper on the languages? Next for our big languages, Somali. So that's the one we're going to tackle next.
Cheetahs run, they hunt, they chase.
አቦ ሸማኔዎች ይሮጣሉ ያድናሉ ይበራሉ
Cheetahs eat what they can catch.
አቦ ሸማኔዎች የያዙትን ሁሉ ይበላሉ
Giraffes stand tall as trees.
ቀጭኔ ረዥም ዛፍ ጎትቶ ይበላል
They lift their noses and they eat leaves.
አገሲረ አፍንጫው ወደ ላይ ያሸተዋል
Elephants stomp, they roll in mud.
ዚሆን ቀስ እያለ እንዲህ እያለ ይራመዳል
An elephant can push down a tree.
ሀገ እንትን ዚሆን ትልቁን ዛፍ ግፍትር አድርጎ ይጥለዋል ወልቃማ
Monkeys jump and swing.
ዝንጀሮዎች ይዘላሉ ይጫወቱማል
They chatter and call chi-chi, chi-chi.
ያንሾካሾካሉ ይጠራሉ
I love making new books.
Yeah, we have one we did together. This one, Layla's now an author. This one is called Surprise on Lake Tana. You may have seen it. It's also illustrated by the amazing Iyayu Ganet, who's based in Bahadar. And we have 2 more books coming out with him and another 2 behind that. What we've found with Layla, she likes to write. And this is actually based on a story from our first trip back, where we got stuck on a small boat in the middle of Lake Tana. For no other reason than a small boat does not have enough gas to get to an island in the middle of Lake Tana, and there wasn't a lot of life vests, and let's just say it was a very different experience. And because there was a bit of a language barrier, we weren't entirely sure why we were stuck in the middle of the boat, and we were all trying to figure out if swimming was going to be required. And our guide had just told us about the hippos in the lake, so swimming seemed like a really bad idea. But that's been a fun way to capture. And another story that we have coming out is also based on one of our trips back and something funny we observed.
Me and my best friend, her name is Noah. She isn't from Nigeria, and we thought that it would be a really cute idea to write a book about 2 friends who meet in a marketplace in Ethiopia. And the girl from Nigeria is visiting with her mother, and the girl from Ethiopia is working at the marketplace. So they both decide to try and find things that they can find in both Ethiopia and Nigeria.
Yeah, the idea for that, because I told her mom about some of our stories, in some of the proverbs, and she said those are not Ethiopian proverbs. We have them in Nigeria too. Those are African proverbs. So it was interesting to see that our books have a reach beyond, Ethiopia.
One of the stories, which takes place in West Africa, features a boy named Yaya.
It's called Yaya Come Here, and the author-illustrator had visited West Africa and met this little boy, and basically it just talks about life in West Africa, right? Just everyday life, which would be a norm to someone living there, but very interesting to someone who's never been. And we translated it in part. That's one of our longer books. So someone took that book back to West Africa, and they found Yaya, who is now in his 20s, and they were able to show him, here's the book about you, right? And his mother, and it was an amazing experience.
Telling the stories of Yaya and many other Africans, the Ready Set Go books provide the rare opportunity of Black children seeing themselves in books.
No white people, unless they're there's a visitor somewhere, but and frankly, I think every kid should see themselves in books, right? And when we go to Ethiopia, I think one of the most exciting parts is people say exactly that. This is me. this is me, right? Like if someone, or the runaway injera, right? Like so they, you know, in Addis, this is Addis, or this is Lalibela, or this is Gandhar. And that's exciting because even, you know, going to the library with my daughter, like how many books are there with white characters, right? Like plenty. How many books are there with brown characters? Some. How many books are there with black characters? Some, but nowhere near the same.
The project, which started off as an effort to address literacy concerns, has become a valuable initiative in a time of global outcry for social justice.
That is a big part of our goal now as we watch what's happening around the world, that part of making things more equal is increasing Black literacy, increasing Black stories, and kids see value when they can see themselves, right? You see what society values when you see who's on the cover of a book. Like we put girls on the cover too, right? Like how many of them are boys? And if you're not careful, it's really easy to do, right? Because a lot of stories do feature like it's sports or, so that was a big goal for us. And this one too, like very inclusive, hijab, no hijab, right? Like we make everyone is valuable, whether you have a certain religious belief or not, and we want every kid to go through and say, that's me, right? Like that's me somewhere in the book. And this one's about Harar, which you may have guessed. And again, the story here is there's an adoptive mom whose child is from Harar, and she's also a fantastic artist. So this is a gift to her daughter of a book that features two little girls, you know, basically going around and finding yellow things. And in Harar, I've never been, but I've seen the incredible pictures. The colors are just amazing. So it kind of captures that in a book for those who don't get to go back. But I've had a lot of people who, you know, maybe Muslim or from Harar are like, that's my book, right? That book is for me. When I went to talk at universities, which I thought was interesting, they wanted me to talk at universities in Ethiopia. They wanted me to talk about many things, including, you know, gender equity, which was really interesting to me, that is such a universal challenge. Like every country in the world has not figured out the gender thing. And literally when I went to university, you know, hundreds of people showed up and I thought like, what do I have to contribute? But I realized like, this is where we're the same, but also to talk about, you know, career development and being an entrepreneur and creating your own opportunities, because the jobs are not with the government and the not-for-profits anymore, and universities are struggling to prepare their graduates for jobs, right, that may or may not even exist. So that the goal there is really how do you create opportunities and platforms?
As part of its effort to expand opportunities, Open Hours Big Dreams is organizing coding classes for girls in Ethiopia and supporting other technology initiatives.
That has been a whole nother area of focus, and we were semifinalists and we're waiting to hear back from the U.S. Embassy if we will get awarded a grant to expand the remote training classes that we already did at Jimma University and in Bahadar with different volunteers, and essentially all the trainers, with the exception of a few volunteers we have in country, were in the US. So everything was done remote, and we did coding competitions. We did a intro to HTML type of class, but also a train the trainer where people had a background, but it was training them to apply it in a way that, you know, large global tech companies would expect.
With the experience Layla has gained from contributing to her home country, she is set up for a bright future. That could mean a future in writing or a number of other options.
I do really like writing. I like to write just random books like on the side. Not all of the books that I write I like share about, just because sometimes I just sketch things, like do a quick little draft, because I just like creating things, and I would love to be an author. I would love to be an author, but yeah, it's really hard to be successful with being an author. So.
She also loves to dance and play basketball and be a teacher. So I don't know if she'll be a lawyer like mom, but yeah. She called me a boss lady once. It's the only person that she's like, Mom, you're a boss lady. And that was like the best compliment anyone has ever given me. And I wouldn't like it from someone else, but from my daughter, that was pretty cool. No, we're pretty sure that she will be one of those fortunate kids that has lots of choices And I think it's a matter of sort of figuring out what you want to do. Although Dad is a math teacher and my dad was a math teacher, I don't think she's going to be a math teacher. She's good at math, but not her favorite.
No matter what she chooses, the Bahadar girl has her family's support, not only from her parents, but also from her brothers.
They're huge supporters of their little sister, because actually we were playing a Dutch game called Vertel Us, which means tell us more. They all kind of poo-pooed this game because there's no winner or no loser, it's just sharing. But one thing her brother shared, which I thought was really sweet, was like that he was so proud of all the things that she'd done, and that those were things that he never could have done at his age. And he's very accomplished and confident. Like, he was our MC at a giant event when he was like 16, and he was like, I couldn't do what my sister did.
Even as the little sister, however, Layla has always been able to hold her own.
I tell a story which she laughs at. It's when she was too young to remember, but her older brother, who was probably 16 at the time, so she was 5, was just giving her a hard time. You know, brothers are supposed to give sisters a hard time. And she got up on like the kitchen stool so she could look him in the eye, because he was that much taller than her. And she said, "You are not mom, you are not the truth, and you are not the boss of me." And it was like priceless. And I shared with some friends who said, like, I want that on a t-shirt. You're not mom, you're not the truth, and you're not the boss of me. Everyone has the opportunity to have a huge impact from an individual, but you have to find a vehicle and a way to contribute. And again, it doesn't have to be big, right? Some of our volunteers do small things. Small things are incredibly valuable because it's like they add up, right? And some people have the capacity to do big things. That's wonderful. But some people have the capacity to give large money, but most of our money comes from very small donations, right? From lots and lots of people. So I also want to have people understand we're not unique. Anyone can do what we're doing if you have a passion for something and you want to give back and you engage your community, whoever your community is, to say, let's do this together. And make sure that it's actually together, because I think that is part of the secret sauce. Is this is very much a project where we listen, we learn, we get it wrong sometimes, we're humble, and we want to do this as a community project rather than something that we say, look at me, this is what I did. Like, I'm very proud that this is something that was done, you know, as a very large community effort.
We believed in 2 things. One, that the communities we belong to would step up and would help us, because we didn't have what it took to make this happen. And the second is we believed in the power of children's dreams. Children are the future. They have the right to dream big dreams. And some kids don't see the same opportunities. And we wanted to equalize that. And what we found is we were right on both counts. Look around. This is absolutely unbelievable. And it's so amazing to see communities from Amazon to basketball communities, to the Ethiopian community, to folks interested in literacy, to the Ethiopia Reads community, come together to do something for kids.
ሰውነቴ